Welcome back. I feel that we have to confront the reality that the world is becoming fascist. Not 1930s fascism. I'm not talking about Hitler in the brown shirts or Mussolini in the black shirts. I'm not talking even about Stalin's version of totalitarianism in the old Soviet Union. I am talking about a modern form of fascism. Years ago, I used to call it invisible fascism, but I don't think it's invisible anymore. It is unacknowledged, however. I think we're moving into a society where the generation of fear is now the new normal. So what does this have to do with UFO disclosure? Well, I think it actually has a lot to do with UFO disclosure. I'm currently in discussion with my very good friend and colleague Steve Bassett over a possible disclosure event. We're trying to get this going for Toronto at the end of September of this year. And in thinking about that, I'm continually revisiting my thoughts on the whole concept of disclosure. It's funny to me when every now and then I find some extremely ignorant comments by commentators, a few of them well-known authors in the UFO field, who think that they know my opinions on disclosure when it's obvious to me that they haven't listened to a single thing I've said about it. They make all kinds of assumptions. Assumption number one being that I somehow believe that, oh yeah, disclosure is going to just solve all of our problems, make the world a better place. If anything, I have been saying for the longest time that the disclosure of the UFO reality and the cover-up that has been associated with it for all of these years will in all likelihood exacerbate, at least for a certain period of time, not ameliorate, but exacerbate a lot of the problems, social problems that we are dealing with in our world today. I don't think it's going to make the world less chaotic. I think it can make the world easily more chaotic for quite some time. The reason that I support disclosure, however, is one is a philosophical reason. I just think that we are better served with a foundation of truth rather than a foundation of lies. We're talking about a reality of a phenomenon that millions of people in the world have interacted with over the decades, millions. And in fact, they've dealt with this phenomenon typically on their own, atomized, isolated from other citizens, unable to talk with other people because they don't know anyone else who's had these experiences. And the reason they don't know anyone else has had these experiences is because they're under a media barrage that ridicules the phenomenon and makes people ashamed to talk about it. So people simply go through their lives thinking that they and they alone have had this bizarre experience. Well, I have news for you. A lot of people have had bizarre experiences with a reality that they do not know how to explain. So it just seems to me on that basis alone, this philosophical position, that we are better served with the truth than with lies. It's very simple. I just can't believe that we have a better world based on fiction than on truth. Whatever destiny we as a species, as a civilization are going to have, how can we achieve it based on fiction, based on lies? I would say we cannot achieve it on that basis, that we can only achieve whatever we are meant to be based on truth. And, the fact is that truth is not necessarily pleasant. Truth is not necessarily something that we want to hear, but it's truth. And you cannot build a better world if you don't have truth. But, I started this segment by talking about fascism, and I want to tie this now into the necessity of disclosure. We are in a world where as I have occasionally put it, the extraterrestrial question is the secret sauce that flavors the bad meal known as geopolitics. That's a sentence that one of my Facebook friends helped me to put together. In other words, those people at the top of our human pyramid, I think that there are a very small group of people who are well aware of everything or nearly everything associated with the reality of the UFO phenomenon. And I'm making an assumption here that this is connected with extraterrestrials. Maybe it isn't. Maybe the UFO phenomenon is dominated by an intelligence that is not extraterrestrial, but is also not from our civilization. I guess there's different possibilities here. I think extraterrestrial is still a very reasonable supposition, but I will acknowledge that maybe there's something else going on here. To me, that's almost not even important. The important thing is that this is an intelligence that does not stem from the civilization that you are living in and that I am living in. But the larger question here, the larger point that I'm making is that the reality of that phenomenon is not the only thing that the controllers of our global civilization are concerned about. They've got other things on their mind. The UFO secret is only part of the larger picture for them. What's the rest of the larger picture? Well, one is owning every single thing on this planet. Like I've been talking about. Water, yes, check. Genetically modified food that they want to shove down your throat for the rest of all time, check. Every mineral in the ground that you can think of, check. All the intellectual property that you will read or listen to for the rest of your life, check. They want it all, and they want more than that. And you know what? They're going to get it if we don't stop them. So that's one thing that's really important for them, is owning everything that's worth owning. Secondly, as a way to get that, they want to continue the process of globalization, destroying nations, making nations irrelevant. They're becoming irrelevant. So what we have instead are global structures of power, global treaties that are not even called treaties, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, or TTIP, which is the version of TPP for the Atlantic side of things, where national laws just will not any longer matter. You want to create a law in your community to protect your local environment from some nasty thing that some corporation is doing, and the result of these treaties is that the corporation will be able to sue your nation or maybe your town, for all I know, for damages to their profitability or potential profitability. Yes, that's in these agreements that are being, the attempt is to shove them down our throats without anyone even reading them. In other words, the point is that local people are losing control over their lives, so that banks, privately owned banks and financial groups, exercise dominant control over entire populations. What we're looking at, in other words, is the creation of a completely new global political paradigm. And the problem that people are having is they're not aware that this is happening because no one's really telling them. They're still going to school as kids thinking, oh yeah, we elect our member of Congress and we have checks and balances, and if we don't like this member of Congress, we can vote them out and we'll bring someone else in. And I'm going to tell you, that's not the system anymore. That's a dead system. That's a corpse of a system. Yes, it still exists, but it's irrelevant, because all those members of Congress and all those members of all the other elected officials are owned by banking and financial groups anyway. These guys don't care. They'll pass horrible laws, and if you vote them out of office, it doesn't matter. They don't give a damn, because they end up going to work for those pharmaceutical companies or the banking industries or whatever. And then you just bring someone else in and they'll just do the same thing. That's how the system, in fact, works. So that's part of their goal. Another part of the goal, as I talked about in the last segment, is the complete gutting of an entire class of a nation, the middle class. In my poor country, the United States, 51% of Americans make less than $30,000 a year. How do you live on that? 38% make less than $20,000 a year, and 25% of Americans have a negative net worth. What is going on? So this is happening. This is a reality. I talked about TTP. I talked about TTIP. I talked about globalization. Then there's the robo-apocalypse. This is a real phrase. Real economists and real techno experts are talking about it. It's not simply that low-level, low-skilled jobs are becoming automated. That's happening. But now what we're seeing in the next 10 years, middle-level jobs, mid to upper-level jobs are all becoming automated. They call it the robo-apocalypse. And it's not like the Terminators are coming out to kill you. No, it's just that the automated systems are coming to take your jobs away. So my question is, in this type of a situation, over the next generation, the generation that my children are part of, that they and their peers are going to have to go out and try to make a living, how are they going to do that? How will people make a living? These are real serious problems. I'm going to come up to disclosure. I haven't lost my train of thought here. So our would-be handlers, what are they trying to do? They're trying to create their own, I've talked about a breakaway civilization in the past. Well, they're trying to create a breakaway financial structure, their own type of variation of a breakaway civilization in which these global systems are in place that have broken away from national control, from individual nations and citizens, essentially to destroy nations. And we're seeing the literal destruction of several nations right now to the banks. I just came back from Greece. Greece is a nation that I truly weep for. With friends like that, who needs enemies? Greece is being completely destroyed by private banks right now. Or a nation like Ukraine, which was the victim of a CIA-engineered coup in 2014 and has been down the hellhole ever since. But not just those nations, all nations increasingly are going away to a new system of international royalty. And by the way, this is a system that requires the generation of things like false flags and regime change and propaganda control and mind control and population control of all sorts as a way to maintain itself. Rule by fear, rule by lie, rule by misdirection. So that's the world we are moving into. And by the way, these handlers of ours, these elites, I believe, not only are they aware of these are goals, of course, but not only are they aware of an extraterrestrial presence or the presence of an other, as I'll often call it, but I have come to believe that they also have probably a long-standing esoteric knowledge. I came to this simply by, I guess, doing my own research. A key source in turning me around on this was classic work, I would say, of genius by Manly P. Hall, a book called The Secret Teachings of the Ages, in which he really laid out for me, and I think if you've bothered to read this, it's well worth your time, the true esoteric history of many of the global world religions of thousands of years ago. And what came through to me loud and clear is that these, like all of the major religions of the world, have their own esoteric tradition that is only available to initiates who've done the hard work to understand what it's about. And it seems to me that there is in all likelihood a continuity that has gone through the ages, through the millennia, through all the many centuries. And is it possible that the people at the top of our human pyramid today maintain a certain type of esoteric knowledge? We might call it occult knowledge. Is it possible? I would say it's absolutely possible. It might be true. There's certainly no shortage of rumors and leaks toward that effect. So it's a weird situation when you really think about it. And on top of that, we have to wonder, is there a relationship of this human elite to these other beings that are here along with us? I think, in all likelihood, yes. So with all of that in mind, does it not seem like a good idea to you that we find a way for the people to take back and eliminate this sense of helplessness that is being foisted upon us, and force open somehow the deepest, darkest, most powerful secret of our time, which is the reality of this phenomenon we call UFOs, the reality of an intelligence that is behind that phenomenon, and the reality of a cover-up that has existed for an entire human lifetime now to keep all of this under wraps. Because it just may be, guys, that the only way we're going to break this lurch toward fascism, toward total control of a global totalitarianism that I believe is designed to last forever, the only way to break it, it seems to me, is by uncovering a secret, a crime, really, that is equal to the task. In the United States, I wonder, maybe 9/11 might go a long way toward doing that. If we were to open up the truth on 9/11, I think that would be very, very significant. Absolutely would be significant. Would it be enough? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But the UFO secret, I think that actually is absolutely big enough. You know, the problem is a lot of alternative researchers just do not have an appreciation of how significant the UFO topic actually is. And for that reason, it alone may have the potential to truly to rock our world once it comes out. A people-driven disclosure, not the kind of disclosure that I now believe is in the works. I believe there is a disclosure in the works, and it's not a pretty one. It's fascist disclosure. I talked about this in my very last program that I did a few weeks ago before I went on my travel adventures. You know, just to recap briefly, I mean, that form of disclosure, I believe, you know, with our elites fully well aware of the kind of world that they are trying to create, basically a global police state to keep the restless population in line, a world of propaganda, cultural distractions, news censorship, covert ops, provocation, regime change, and false flags, all of that. And in such a world, particularly a world where they're probably looking at an endgame of advanced artificial intelligence, quantum computing, total control over DNA, organic 3D printing, a class-based transhumanism. Sounds creepy? It is creepy. Think about it. It's going to be possible in another generation, easily, for people who can afford it to have better genes for their kids, to have longer lives for their kids, more intelligence, more strength, maybe with some nice implants along the way. Do you think that'll be for everyone? Doubt it. So it'll be a utopia for those who can afford it, a total dystopia for the rest of us. That's the world we're moving toward. Now, lurking in the background of all of this is this UFO reality, which cannot be kept secret forever. Our world is too disruptive. Our world is too revolutionary. Human society is going through way too much change for it to be forever swimming below the surface. So it's going to come out. So therefore, I believe that what we are seeing is the beginnings of a kind of global rebranding of the UFO. And, I'm thinking of the recent appearance by Hillary Clinton on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Again, I've talked about this as a way to soften the impact of disclosure. She steered him away from UFOs toward the acronym of UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. When you think of UFOs, you think of gray aliens, Area 51, cover-ups, pop culture. When you think of UAP, not so much. It's a much less value-laden phrase. And my guess, this is only a guess, is that in promoting the phrase UAP, First of all, one thing Hillary Clinton was doing is simply telling the world that she knows a lot about the subject. Interesting enough. But secondly, by discussing UAP as opposed to UFO, you know, if the president of the United States were to talk about UAP as a phenomenon that's real, I'm wondering if they believe that they can therefore steer the topic away from such questions as conspiracies and cover-ups and alien bodies being held at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and the like. Essentially, in other words, to drain the blood out of the subject. I think that is a real possibility. I don't think that they're anywhere close to being able to get away with it right now, but maybe in another 10 years they will be. Maybe in another 20 years they will be. Yes, I think so. If they've toxified enough of the population through bad food and pharmaceuticals, yes. If they've poisoned the minds of people through not simply reality TV shows and, you know, stupid game shows, but also through having a whole new generation of young people growing up playing virtual reality video games, where people basically just, you know, kind of opt out of reality. Is it possible then that in the context of a 24/7 virtual fascist society, an entertainment complex that simply dominates the mind, a spin system, propaganda system that is so effective, do they believe that they will be able to disclose? And by the way, I think now that when, or let us say if there is an American disclosure, there's probably such a mass of classified data that would be available that they would be able to release only a small amount of it to promote their version that they want to put out there. Understand? In other words, if you've got this huge wealth of classified UFO data and you want to disclose the reality of this phenomenon, you can, I think in all likelihood, it would be possible to select whatever portion they want to select to promote their agenda. And that agenda would be definitely to increase, not decrease, their hold of power over society. And I realize I've blown through most of my segment here. I haven't really talked about the American segment of it, but let me just do this real quickly. I did an interview. It's now on YouTube, and it's also on earthmysteries.com. Earthmysterynews.com. I'm not alone in the room here. Earthmysterynews.com. Go check it out. It's about 10 minutes, 12 minutes. And what I said, it's also on YouTube. I had this realization that American-led disclosure is probably not in the world's best interest. I think, unfortunately, that the United States has become such a force for evil in this world. How else? It's not that America is evil. America is not evil. What's happened is that the American military and the American political system have become dominated by global financial powers that want to use the world's most ass-kicking military in the world, the United States military, for its own purposes. So you go into Iraq and you steal $30 trillion worth of oil under the ground and sell it off to multinationals. You go off into Afghanistan and obtain trillions of dollars worth of minerals under the ground there. You go destroy the nation of Syria because of natural gas pipelines and grand geopolitics that have nothing to do with the benefit or anything else to do with the United States. It all has to do with global financial interests. But the United States is being used for these purposes. But it is not in the interest of the world for the United States, I think. Certainly not for President Obama, or if Hillary Clinton or if Donald Trump gets in. I don't believe that if they were to disclose the reality of UFOs, and I don't think that that is in the plans, but if they were, I don't believe it would be a good thing for the world. Much better would it be if some other national leader were to have the courage to do it and take the power away from the United States, because that is what is needed in this world today. The United States political structure does not need more power. The world needs less, not more, American power. When the United States leaves in its wake a trail of destroyed nations, there's really nothing else to say about it. A US-led disclosure is, in all likelihood, not going to be a good thing for the world. If I end up having this discussion on disclosure with my colleague Stephen Bassett, this is probably something that I will want to explore further, and I'll probably explore this theme further here on this program myself. But guess what? I'm at the bottom of the hour. So with that, let's just take a quick break. When I come back, I will talk about UFOs as a gateway to self-discovery. I'm Richard Dolan here on KGRA Radio. Be right back.